So back to spirituality again. The unifying concept of our group is gifted children. And we've discussed that gifted is kind of an ambiguous term. It has kind of a broad meaning and it means different things for different individuals. So the question arises with relation to spirituality, are certain children gifted in that area? Some children have more math abilities, some have more music abilities. Is there some spiritual ability that might be more advanced or more deep or broad in some children than others?
Go ahead. Would you like to? We start with the sample.
Who's brave enough to take that one on?
I can start with this one. I want to just give you a brief definition of what I understand when we use the word spiritual. Go back to that because I was not willing to define it before. My understanding of spirituality is a relationship to the larger reality of which we are a part, whether we call that reality God or the universe or something else. So my understanding of spirituality, again, is relationship. It's about being related. It's about connecting with that larger reality, however we define that. I believe that every child, regardless of their abilities, has the capacity for spiritual engagement, for spiritual relationship to the world, spiritual relationship to God, whatever their understanding of the larger reality is. I believe that there are some children that are sensitive, might be one word to explain it, where they have a sense of that larger reality that permeates the way that they go about their life. For example, there are some children that I've noticed, if they will see an animal that has been killed by a car, their hearts will just break. And they will understand that that animal is a part of this world just as they are in this very deep and resonant way, so that they will be affected by the death of that animal in a way that I think it doesn't affect other people possibly as easily, or maybe we've just gotten accustomed to turning the other way. I believe that that is a spiritual gift, to sense that connection. It could also be a burden. There are other ways to describe spiritual giftedness. Mystical experiences is one, where a child might, sorry, excuse me. Where a child might have some sort of a dream and believe that it's more a part of reality, or have a sense that they've been turned by this dream and pointed in a different direction. I think that these exist. I don't necessarily know that they exist in parallel in any way to gifted and talented in the context that you speak about here most commonly.
I don't disagree with anything that you said. I mean, I could... once again, I think it's very different depending on the age of your child, what you're dealing with. I think, she's talking about high school children. It's for young children, magical thinking is part of their world. It's part of their development. And you can either, if your child has some mystical experience, some parents are afraid of that, and they feel like that they have to explain it away or take that experience away from their child. I think the harm is done if you don't treat your child in a way that's appropriate for their age and their understanding of reality. And even gifted children, they may be gifted in math or science or some particular area, but they are children and they grow up through the stages in many ways. One of the values, one of the things I like very much that you said was the sense of connectedness with sense of connectedness. Many of your children, you say they don't feel connected because they are different if they're gifted. My daughter was in John Hopkins Talented and Gifted program. She is a clinical psychologist and practices in California. And, I think I could go through stories of different children, but the parent's reaction is really the key more than the child. I think sometimes we want to treat our children's experiences of development the way that we would. To try to get a 7-year-old or a 6-year-old to do comparative religious studies, I don't not that they can. I mean, some of them are very, it depends on your child, but I'm just saying, you know your child, and I think you have to do what's appropriate. I agree you want the children to be able to respect other beliefs, but you know, I mean, it's very difficult because you said this is a very personal conversation because it has to do with your child and where they are and where you are, and it's very difficult to just throw out general statements other than the kind of statements that have been made that you would want all, I mean, we would hope, and those of us, I think that at this table would certainly agree, you would want to teach your children to have respect for different beliefs. And as is appropriate, you want them to examine those. But it's kind of like telling your children about sex. You know, you tell them what's appropriate for the age that they are. You don't try to explain to the 5-year-old who asks where babies come from the same way that you would a 15-year-old. And that's why I think it's very hard to make these statements, because a child, at what level of development are you talking about? Are you talking about a young child? Are you talking about a child in elementary school? Are you talking about a high school child? Are you talking, I think it's very different the way that you handle those. And I'll hush. I know my time is up. I do think it's important, though, that you do have some, that is part of your child's holistic development, that you have a responsibility to help them kind of navigate these transcendental questions and to channel those in a productive way. But that's going to be greatly influenced by your own background, your own faith traditions. But I wouldn't try to, any more than I would want you to indoctrinate your child, this is the only religion and all other religions are wrong. I also, you know, would hate for you to start with a child who is young, who's had a mystical experience and says, no, that can't be true because I don't believe in any kind of deity, and so you can't either, you know, or you shouldn't either. Or to ridicule them, or that's stupid because, you know, that's not scientific. Well, that may be appropriate if you want to challenge a teenager that way, but that's not appropriate to talk to a 6-year-old that way. And so I'm just saying, I think it's very important that you do this in a very individualistic way. I don't think we can give you a set of 12 rules that apply to every child at every age. I think we can give you some principles, and I think there have been some good principles.
They've said it very well. Okay, I gotta say something. Okay, so Simon Jacobson, who writes the book, I think the title's A Meaningful Life, but that title probably is on a lot of books. But he says something I found very interesting, which was don't deny your child the opportunity for knowledge of God, relationship with God, connection to spirituality. And I thought that struck me very powerful in that it's a very explicit way of saying something I think that we tend to know as parents, which is what King Solomon taught in Proverbs, which is Hanoch et anar lefi darko, educate a child according to their way. So that if the young child is showing some sort of spiritual inclination, even if that's not part of my life, it's a disservice perhaps, I think, to the youngster to deny them that. And the same thing with, I can admit it here, I'm not a big fan of dancing, but my daughter likes to dance. And I shouldn't impede her joy of that activity because it's not meaningful to me. So finding that, but it's much more challenging because I don't have a natural love for what her passion is.
Okay, I think the two questions are, We're primarily talking about should we accept children that someone can be at a higher spiritual level gifted, right? And then you have mystical experiences from that. But the first question, I think the binary answer is, my belief again is yes. Like I think Dr. Stanford also said that children, I mean, throughout various cultures and other religions, the revelatory experience has come at different ages. So the binary answer is yes. How it's like we got nice clothes to wear, but we don't wear them all the time. It's like when the right time comes, that's when that experience is felt by your own self. If you have that within you, when the time comes, that will be known that you are gifted. But for others to see it and for you to express yourself and for others to realize it, it's always been difficult with every faith, with every founder of every faith. Firstly, that person was ridiculed and not understood by society and condemned, and then all of a sudden we have, we live up to those people. We want to be like them. So so I think children can be, we all are at different levels of spiritual, but our time comes and our deeds and our actions will actually say, okay, we come with some destiny. Do we live this life like that? I think it's all mystical. It can change all of a sudden. It's like a plan. If we live by that plan, I think we will see the things happen. But if we go off that plan, there's again, and that's why there are institutions in the world and religious faiths in the world to keep people in balance so they can live their destiny, whether it's towards Christianity, whether it's towards Islam, whether it's towards Hinduism. So that's all.
So your question is that the children have gifted spiritually? Correct. Okay. How many of you have seen the 60 Minutes experiment on babies and the sense of morality? Yeah, you saw that, right? Yeah, you did too. Wasn't it amazing? Every child is born an atheist until they are indoctrinated by the religion of their parents or the ideology of the family. And so I believe that every child has the potential to be spiritually gifted. Children have, early on, they have a sense of right and wrong. They have a sense of justice and fairness. And studies back that up. And just like whether it be math or spirituality or reading, you cultivate that. You respect that sense of morality that they have, and you cultivate that, and you let it flourish. And it can be a walk in the park, and you talk about ethics at the level of the children, or maybe giving them a book at their level. Or maybe, to a church and listen to an inspiring sermon about ethics, fairness, or love, or whatever. But as a teacher, I see the potential in every child to be kind, respectful, possess a kind of fairness, how to treat others, because it's in their play every day, how they treat other children and how they expect to be treated. They have that sense of morality. They have that sense of spirituality in them, and then when the moment comes with the right guiding, with the right nurturing, they can be spiritually gifted and they can articulate that. Yes, ma'am.
Can I slightly challenge that?
Yes.
One of the assumptions that people sometimes make about gifted children is one of these things that we would call a myth. I guess we have our own creed.
Right.
Is that all children have the potential to be gifted. Whereas you're looking at a group of people who say, or who have done IQ testing, and if you buy into that, believe that some of our children were born with a greater capability.
Right, and I believe that too. Like science shows that sometimes we have children who I don't know the terms, the medical terms for that, but they are so gifted in certain area like math or whatever, but then not very well socially and I believe in that, and science can explain that. But I'm talking about like average children, they have the potential. But as far as like children are born with like a certain biological capability. Yeah, yes.
More, to be spiritually gifted, the way we would define gifted, you're inherently born with capability that far exceeds what the typical
Right.
child
Well, it's
has.
easier to say, spiritual, like gifted in math or science or reading, but then gifted in spiritual. Then you have to tell me what spiritual means. What is spiritual? Like,
Well, as you
right.
kind of universally defined as a connection to a greater sense or a greater universe, or so is it possible for children?
Like a 5-year child expressing, talking about God and life and how
Well,
all faiths are the same. Like that, I would imagine that the child is.
Well, the Mormon faith had that. Joseph Smith his mother she always had these bouts of spirituality, and he grew up surrounded by that. And so as a young, early preteen, he already was very spiritual, quote unquote, and seeing things, right? And he became the founder of Mormonism. Some people contested that, but the Mormons definitely believe in that. So, yeah. But I think that we need to be careful with the term, what does it mean to be spiritually gifted? What do you mean? Is it an overwhelming love and fairness to other people? Or I see things in the air, I dream things at night. What do you mean? Or somebody who's like, I think it's unfair as a 10-year-old, unfair that we treat people of different race differently, and I'm gonna speak out about that. Are you talking about that sense of spirituality? Or are you talking about, you know what I'm saying? So we need to be careful, because when what's math and reading is concrete, but the term spirituality is so big out there that it's better if we could define what it is. Exactly. Or you go fishing and say, why is that fish on the hook, and start crying, right?